Holy moly, Kirill Marchenko. That's it. That's the cold open. I should be more creative with these, but I'm not. We're going to talk about that huge win over the Kings on today's special live edition of Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. We're going to be doing a lot of that first one and not a lot of those second two today. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day, even if it is, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But we're going to talk about the big win. We're going to talk about Marchenko. We're going to talk about Elvis. We're going to talk about how this was a key win, since everyone else that they're in the wildcard spot with is also either in the process of winning or has already won. So that's all coming up. If we have questions, that's great. I would love to do a little bit of a question and answer at the end of the episode. So if you have any questions, throw them in the comments and I will get to them probably in the third segment. But first, I want to talk about the game. I'm probably not going to look a lot at the comments while I start off, just because we've been here before. I can only do one, maybe two things at a time, and unfortunately, talking and thinking are those two things. So if you have questions, great. Throw them in the comments. I will get to them in the third segment in just a minute here. Before we get started, I do also have to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if that bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we're going to get started with is, holy moly, what a goal from Marchenko. I'm not going to lie, I had kind of a bad feeling about that overtime. How many times did we see that last season with the Blue Jackets surrendering a goal late, going to overtime, and then falling in overtime to the other team? I think that's only the Blue Jackets' second actual overtime win of the season. They were 1-6 going into this, I want to say. They've got a bunch of shootout wins, but that was only their second actual overtime win, as opposed to winning in the skills competition / coin flip that is the shootout. Zakharensky's penalty shot would have been a legendary way to win this game, but don't worry about it. Kirill superstar Marchenko is here, and he would like a goal. It's funny, after that goal went in, I got texts from a couple of friends. One from JD, my good friend over at Locked On Sharks, and Scott Matler, who used to host Locked On Canadians. They both texted oh my God, that goal. I was like, I know. Marchenko was firing on all cylinders all game, and he really has elevated his game in a way that is so fun. And I've been talking about this all season. This is not new news to anyone. But the fact that he has turned from a goal scorer into a guy that can score goals and also is a playmaker. And then this year he's added that two-way game to his game. But he hasn't sacrificed really any offense in that, and I feel like that happens sometimes when you try and get guys to play more defense. Their offense suffers a little bit, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it should balance out. If you're so highly offensive that you're also just allowing goals, left, right, and center, if you scale back some of your offense to play defense, then it comes out in the wash. If you're scoring 10 goals but also allowing 10 goals, but if you then change that so you're only scoring 8 goals but you're only allowing 3 goals, for example, it's a net positive, but Marchenko hasn't sacrificed much, if any, of his offense. I just want to pull up his stats real quick, because I believe he is either at a new career high or is about to hit a new career high. He's sailed past his career high, actually. He's got 52 points on the season, 53 now. Actually, I believe that's his 20th goal of the season. So 53 points. His previous career high was 42. And he's gone from, he was a plus minus means very little, kind of to me, and also like in the grand scheme of things, it's one of those buzzwords that gets pulled out by like, you can't talk about it without like talking about everything else around it, you know? But Marchenko going from, he was a minus 23 in his rookie season, despite scoring 21 goals, he was still a minus 23. Last season, he was a minus 5. But so, you know, huge improvement there. This season, he is a plus 28, which does in fact lead the NHL. As far as I'm aware, unless that has changed in the past, like, handful of games that were played, and by handful of games, I mean, like, the games that were played tonight, he is leading the NHL in plus minus. So, like, again, plus minus is not necessarily, like, indicative of this is a really good player versus this is a really bad player. Like, there was a year where I think Alex Ovechkin had, like, the third worst plus minus of anyone in the NHL, and obviously no one was out here saying, man, Ovechkin's actually secretly a bad player because his plus minus is so bad, you know? But it shows growth in his game. It shows that he's a rock star. Like, I am so impressed with what Marchenko has turned into, because there's nothing wrong with a guy being just a pure goal scorer, you know? Like, we see it all the time. But the fact that Marchenko, he scored, obviously, 21 goals and 4 assists in his rookie season. And then the fact that he's gone from there to, okay, now I'm going to do assists. So he was, you know, pretty even last season. He had 23 goals, 19 assists. This season, he's got 20 goals and 33 assists. Like, he hasn't sacrificed any of that goal scoring to improve other areas of his game. And they got him in the second round. Like, we talked about this a while ago. I think it was maybe last summer or the summer before. We looked at that. It was the 2018 draft, I believe, that Marchenko was picked in. Yeah, so their first round pick that year was Liam Foudy, who they took, I want to say 14th overall. They took Marchenko in the second round. If you flip those two players, and if, like, would you, like, if they'd taken Marchenko at 14th overall, what would you, like, would you be happy with that? Because I know I sure would be happy with that. I just want to pull up the scoring for that draft now. Marchenko was, again, taken in the second round of that draft. And he is currently, if I can find it, there he is. He has 119 points in 186 games. The only players that have more points than him, now admittedly some of them have a lot more points than him, but he's only in his third season. Everyone ahead of him has played at least 5. But Brady Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, Andrei Svechnikov, Rasmus Dahlin, Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard, Joel Farabee, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Igor Sharangovich, and Philip Kurashev. They are the only players. So he's 11th in scoring in the entire draft. He was drafted 49th overall. The first 8 players on that list, the first 7 players on that list, were all first round draft picks. The only guys with more points than him that were drafted after him, Igor Sharangovich was drafted 141st overall, and Philip Kurashev was drafted 120th overall. But Marchenko, 119 points in 186 games. Kurashev has 123 in 299 games. So Marchenko will overtake him pretty sharpish. And then Sharangovich has 180 points in 326 games. So, like, he's played over 100 fewer games than anyone ahead of him on this list. And he's also, I think, even higher up when it comes to goals. Yeah, the only players that have more goals than him: Dahlin, Kotkaniemi, Farabee, Sharangovich, Svechnikov, Tkachuk. It's pretty good company to be in, if you ask me. And his goal last night, his goal tonight, I should say. It's been like 20 minutes since the game finished, and I am sleepy. But his goal tonight, fantastic. Just, again, another case of the player that he is turning into. You know, he's been excellent defensively. He's been great offensively. You add a goal like that, like, you can see why guys like Monahan and Fantilli have success with him. you know? And I know that there were a lot of people talking about, is Monahan the reason for Marchenko and Voronkov's success this season? And you look at it and it was like, well, Monahan is dominating no matter who he plays with, you know? Like, when it was Chinikov, Monahan, Marchenko, the line was great. When it was Voronkov, Monahan, Marchenko, the line was great. When it was Johnson, Monahan, Marchenko, the line was great. And now I'm like, okay, not to discredit anything that Sean Monahan has done this season, because I do still think that, like, a lot of the success in the early going of the season has been Sean Monahan, and, you know, what a warrior he's been. I think we need to give some more credit to Marchenko for being one of the best wingers in the game right now. Like, and maybe that's a hot take, maybe it's not, I don't know, but, like, he has been driving that line, and I think you put Fantilli on that line and you're still getting success there, you know? Like, Monahan gets a lot of credit, but I think we also need to give Kirill Marchenko an equal amount of credit. And obviously, the bad news is that Monahan is going to be out for at least another 6 to 8 weeks, so he's not going to be back until at least March 8th, probably between March 8th and March 22nd. So he's basically done for most of the season, which sucks. But the way that Fantilli has played on that top line since Monahan's injury means that, like, there was a world in which this team fell apart without Monahan. Fantilli got moved up to that top line and struggled. I think, you know, credit to Fantilli for sticking in there. Obviously, using Sillinger hurts as well. Hopefully, he's going to be back way sooner than that. But Luca Del Barbalou's also, like, he's on a 3-game point streak right now. Great play again tonight. He has been making it real easy on this team, and he's playing second line center at the minute, and he's got a grand total of 10 NHL games. I think tonight was his 10th NHL game ever. So, like, the fact that the Blue Jackets are not immediately crippled by losing a top 6 center is, like, frankly, I'm really not used to it, and I don't really know how to cope with it. But losing Monahan for another 6 to 8 weeks really sucks. However, Adam Fantilli is doing a more than acceptable job replacing him, and bringing in Del Barbalous and him having the success that he's having as well is making it way, way easier on this team than I think they thought it was going to be. Let's take a quick break, and then I want to talk about Elvis Merzlikins, who was phenomenal tonight. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. It's $300 to keep the action going. Just go in, pick the heaviest favorite you can find. If it wins, you get $300 that you can spend on whatever you want. The app's super easy to navigate. The variety of bets keeps every game exciting. And when you win, you get paid instantly. You don't need to wait around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the NFL playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and also us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to this very special live post-win edition of Locked On Blue Jackets. Just a reminder, I am not currently looking at the comments because I can only do like 1, maybe 2 things at a time. But if you have questions, then I'm going to get to them in the third segment. So if you've got questions about the game, about how the Blue Jackets are doing so far, about how my day is going, I don't know, throw them in the chat and I will get to them probably in about 8 minutes or so. But real quick, first, I want to talk about Elvis Merzlikins, who has put in a really good effort over the past couple of weeks. He wasn't great in the Islanders game, but he was phenomenal against the Maple Leafs, I thought. He was great again tonight. What was it? 30. I had the numbers up and then I lost them. So if you are here for the drinking game, take a drink, because I had the page open and now I don't. The shots were, he made 31 of 33 saves tonight. in the win. Last game, 28 of 29 saves. Can't do math on the fly. That is 29 plus 33 is 62. And he's allowed 3 goals on his last 62 shots. If I'm doing my math right, I might not be. Maybe it's 61. Point being, he is playing excellently. Again, bad game against the Islanders, but again, before that, 1 goal on 19 shots against San Jose, 2 goals on 31 shots against Seattle. Wasn't great against Pittsburgh, but got the win anyway. I'm not going to sit here and say that like Elvis is officially back, but he's definitely trending in a really promising direction. And again, like if you're an everydayer, then you know this. The Blue Jackets don't need Merzlikins to be Vezina level good. You know, they don't live and die by their goaltending in the way that other teams do. If they can get average goaltending out of Elvis, and at the minute he's playing above average, but inconsistency, you know, they haven't added tonight's stats to his page yet, but prior to tonight, he had an .893 save percentage, goals against average of 2.99, which is the lowest it's been in a couple of seasons. Like his last season, it was 3.45. The season before, 4.23. Season before that, 3.22. His second season was a 2.77. So if he can get that save percentage up, like that's real good news for the Blue Jackets, you know? And he kept them in this game as well. The Kings are a good team. They tried real hard to smother the Blue Jackets. That first period, they outshot them 12-5. Somehow the Blue Jackets came out of that tied up at 1. They scored late with a minute left, a minute and 5 seconds, it says here. After the Blue Jackets, again, the Blue Jackets trying to score an empty net remains just like so comically funny to me because they just don't know how to do it. You take the goalie away and they can't see the net. I don't know what it is. But they get trapped in their own zone for 2 full minutes. I think Ivan Provorov was on the ice for 3.5 minutes. They can't clear. They try and clear it twice and the Kings keep it in, and they push and they push and they push, and eventually Quentin Byfield with the goal that they need. It was a good goal. It was a good push. Blue Jackets got lucky earlier in that period with the disallowed goal. But Elvis was great. The penalty kill got a little bit dicey at times. There was a couple of times he made some truly spectacular saves. There was one on Adrian Kempe in the second period that was just I had fully resigned myself to that goal going in, you know. And I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, and a couple of people have the same thing. You know, when you can see a play developing and you just know that a goal is going to be scored. I saw that play develop and I was like, oh, okay, there's the goal. And it wasn't. Great save by Elvis. But, you know, credit to the Kings who played a really great game. Elvis was really great. Maybe not the best player for the Blue Jackets, although maybe he was the best player for the Blue Jackets. I still think, again, Marchenko, that game-winning goal. Zach Werenski just continues to be dominant. He played 28 minutes tonight. Jake Christensen only played 439, which seems like a bad sign if you're playing less than half the amount of time that Jack Johnson is playing. However, Jack Johnson was hungry for goals tonight. He almost scored at least twice, which was extremely fun and also funny. And I'm always hoping for a Jack Johnson goal just because I think I just think it's going to be funny. It's going to be the stupidest goal you've ever seen. And I think it'll be, I don't know. I can't decide what the funniest team for him to score against is. It might be the Avalanche, who he won the cup with a couple of years ago. But beyond that, yeah, Elvis, great tonight. Really, really great performance from Elvis. Again, back-to-back great performances. And now the Blue Jackets have a bunch of time off. They don't play until Thursday now. So they've got plenty of time to rest, and then they've got a back-to-back against Vegas and Utah. So we'll likely see Elvis and Tarasov in those 2 games, but after 3 extremely heavy games in terms of like just shots. So Elvis faced 31 again. I've already lost it. He faced 29 against Toronto. He faced 33 tonight. I think Tarasov faced about 45 shots against the Hurricanes the other night. Like, this is a great excuse for them to get some rest, and we'll see how it goes when we start talking about next week's games, probably Wednesday next week. We'll have to figure out some content to do between now and then. Gonna take another quick break, and then I'll get into some questions. Hopefully, I have some questions in the comments. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about, gosh, I don't know. I'll talk about Jack Johnson some more. So if you don't want that, then throw some questions in the chat, and I'll get to them in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about SelectQuote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Olympics, the Stanley Cup playoffs. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. So get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote.com/LOCKEDON NHL today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets, a special live edition of Locked On Blue Jackets. We're going to get into some questions because I took a peek while the ads were going, and there's a couple of questions in here that I am excited to get to, especially this first one from Sticks and Tape, who I believe was the most excited for a live episode after I was unable to go live after the Maple Leafs win. I was like, hey, let's go live after this win. Let's have some fun. In your opinion, where does Boone Jenner fit in with this team now that he's on track to be back after the Four Nations? This is really interesting because I had him kind of penciled in for second or third line left winger when everyone is healthy. So there is, do we know when Chinakhov is coming back? We don't. Hopefully he's back soon. But with Monahan out for at least another 6 to 8 weeks, my not worry, but I wonder if this team puts him back in at center, which I think is going to be a mistake. I think, especially if you get Sillinger back soon, which hopefully they should, he was apparently almost well enough to play the first game that he missed, and they decided not to risk it. So I don't know whether it's just a case of like they're not going to rush him back or anything like that. But if Delbo Blues continues to thrive as he is, Sean Corelli is he's your fourth line center. Don't mess with a good thing there. And Boone Jenner's not a fourth line player either. Sillinger and then Fantilli, Fantilli, Sillinger, Delbo, Blues as your top 3 centers. Like you have the freedom to put Boone Jenner on the wing. If you bring Chinakhov back, like in my mind, you could put Jenner with Sillinger and Johnson, for example. I think that would work. Or you could put Chinakhov there, move Johnson down, and have move Jenner down and have Jenner probably with Delbo Blues and Olivier. That line feels like it'd be real unpleasant to play against. And then Danforth probably slots down to fourth line left wing, and then you bump Pucher out of the lineup, which is unfortunate because I think Pucher's been playing some really good hockey. But Delbo Blues has been so good in his call-up that I feel like you keep him and you send Pucher down. Whoever is healthy next. But that's what I would do. I do wonder if Jenner ends up going to center just because Sean Monahan is going to be out for a little bit longer, but I wouldn't do it personally. So we'll see how it goes. Sounds like he's going to be back sooner than expected. They were saying that the outdoor game was kind of his goal to be back, and it sounds like he might be back for the couple of games before that. So a good warm up before the outdoor game, which is great news. But he doesn't have to do as much of the heavy lifting this year as he has done in past seasons. And I think you're going to see a much improved Boone Jenner when he's playing lower in the lineup and on the wing and does not have to do all of the heavy lifting as this team's 1C. So real excited for Boone Jenner to get back. Another question from Amsterdam Shusi. I may be mispronouncing that. With both goalies playing well, does Jet have a chance to get a proper run in the show this year? In theory, yes. And I wouldn't count him out. Tarasov and Elvis are both, I wouldn't call them injury prone. I also don't think that they're particularly durable goalies. I'm going to knock on wood here, but there is a chance that one or both of them, knock on wood again, gets injured at some point down the stretch. However, I think that Jet is best in the AHL right now. I know a lot of people get really excited every time he comes up and plays well, but I would much rather see Jet Greaves playing, 50 games in the AHL this year than going up and down and up and down. And I know that when he's been up with the team, he has gotten starts. They didn't have to start him against St. Louis when he was up most recently, and they decided to anyway, and it was a great choice. They have, as long as Merzlikins and Tarasov are playing, again, average or better, they have the freedom to kind of just let Jet Greaves continue to cook, because goalies are fragile and make no sense. And goalies are kind of like cats in many ways. But if you do something wrong with a cat, then it's very, very hard to then go back and get the cat to understand that you didn't mean it. And, if you scare a cat off your lap, the cat's not coming back. Similarly, if you ruin a goalie too early in his career, it's not gonna, you can't fix him. And I think they're taking the low and slow approach with Jet Greaves, which they probably should have done with some of their other prospects, if you ask me. But that's beside the point here. So I think Jet has a chance. I wouldn't count it out, but I don't think they need to right now. And I think the best place for him is in the AHL. So got a couple of questions about free agency here, so I'm going to kind of tackle them together. Leadsmith93 wants to know, is Columbus a buyer at the trade deadline? If so, who should they go after? And then Z-Man Jace, anyone on the market that you'd like to see the Jackets pick up, or do we not want to mess with a good thing? I am kind of the opinion that, don't mess with a good thing a little bit. My guess, and I've talked a lot about how I think the Blue Jackets are still going to be sellers at the deadline. With every game that passes, I become less sure of that. I still don't know that they're going to be buyers. I think they might just kind of stand pat. I know that Don Waddell has kind of talked about how they see Boone Jenner kind of as their trade deadline acquisition, which that's not a bad trade deadline acquisition. There was a lot of people talking about, is he going to be a trade deadline acquisition for another team last year? Because he plays the kind of hockey that playoff teams love. He's big, he crashes around, he chips in on the offense. If they can get peak Boone Jenner, for my money anyway, that's better than anyone else that's kind of available at the deadline, if you ask me. In terms of anyone else on the market, I'm blanking on literally everyone who's available apart from Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, and I don't think the Blue Jackets should go after either of those guys. I'm just pulling up the deadline rankings because I should know this and I don't. But the Blue Jackets don't need to add a lot, I don't think. A middle six winger, maybe, but I don't know who's available that you wouldn't have to pay a lot for. I saw John Buccigross talking about how they should go after Brock Nelson on the Islanders. Here we go. Here's a name that I quite like, actually. Brock Besser is allegedly available for the Canucks. I don't know what his contract looks like right now. I'm a big fan of Brock Besser. And if they had to, pick up someone from the Canucks, he's the guy that I would like them to go after. I think he fits the timeline for the Blue Jackets better. Like, Elias Pettersson is a phenomenal player, but the hope is with the Blue Jackets that you have your centers. Is Elias Pettersson immediately the best center on this team? Probably, but do you risk him bouncing back? He's having kind of a down season this year. Like, do you give up what you need to give up to get Elias Pettersson? Like, they probably want something similar to what Carolina just gave up for Mikko Rantanen, which is a good young player and an extremely good young player. So, like, I was trying to think of like the similarity in like what would the Jackets have had to give up to get Rantanen, for example? And I was like, well, probably something along the lines of Marchenko and Sillinger would have been the trade. Do you give up Marchenko and Sillinger for Elias Pettersson? I don't think so. But Brock Besser plays on the wing. Is a UFA after the end of this year. He's making $6.65 million, which the Blue Jackets have approximately $1 billion in cap space right now. He's got 16 goals, 15 assists, 31 points on the season. And even if that does turn out to be a rental, I think you could get Besser for less than what you'd have to give up for someone like Pettersson. And if you manage to convince him to stick around, hey, great, there's another elite top 6 winger that you can use. Maybe not elite, but like Besser, I feel like, is on the cusp of being a really, really, like, Besser feels like, to me, he's a top 30 winger in the league. I think that he has potential to be a top 20 winger in the league. So if they can pick him up, I would maybe do that, but like, there's no one else really that I'm like looking at as like, man, we should definitely go and get this dude. Like, there's some goalies are available. Like, Ryan O'Reilly is ostensibly available from the Preds, but I don't know. There's no one here that really excites me. I was excited by the concept of maybe getting Rantanen, but that's obviously gone out the window. That wouldn't have been a trade deadline acquisition. That would have been maybe a free agency acquisition. But I don't see them going after, like, there's no one here that I'm like, yeah, they absolutely should go after that like will add more to this lineup than Boone Jenner, I think. But I also, the more time passes, the more I'm like, okay, maybe they keep Provorov for the run. And there's a world there where they're like, okay, well, Provorov is our trade deadline acquisition. In the same way that there was the 2019 playoff run, I believe it was. Obviously, they picked up Duchesne in that, but they also, like, Sergei Bobrovsky was on an expiring contract. Artemi Panarin was on an expiring contract. Neither of those guys were likely to return. There was a world where the Blue Jackets flipped both of those guys, didn't buy at the deadline. And they talked about, well, our trade deadlines, acquisitions were keeping Panarin and keeping Bobrovsky, So there's a world in which they just kind of do that, and they're like, well, we're going to keep Provorov, we're going to keep Kirill. We'll keep all of these guys instead of going out and giving up assets for guys. So just to finish off, this is probably going to be the last question because I am running a little bit long here, but Brett Radabor asks, do you think the Jackets could jump in to eat some bad contracts for more draft compensation? Different trade deadline conversation that we're having, but that was what I thought they could do before the season. I also thought that, and it depends, I think, on what the market looks like, and the indication is that the market doesn't look great for that kind of thing. It could just be that so obviously the main one right now is the Chicago Blackhawks got their own 3rd round pick back for trading Taylor Hall and eating half of Mikko Rantanen's salary this year. So, and they got a 3rd round pick for that. That might just be that Chicago is not good at this, and that Kyle Davidson is a new GM who doesn't know how to, get his way in the league yet. But if you're only getting a 3rd round pick for eating contracts, I don't know that it's worth doing. If you can go in and you can get, a late first or a mid second for eating a contract like that, then sure. But I don't know I don't know if that's the way that Columbus is going to go. They do have a bunch of salary retention slots. I don't think they're currently retaining any salary. I might be wrong on that. I know that Provorov salary is retained, but I don't think Columbus is retaining salary on anyone right now. Oh, so they have 2 buyouts, and then obviously Gaudreau's signing bonus for this year, but they don't actually have any salary retaining right now, so they can retain. So they can retain up to 3 salary, like 50% of 3 salaries. So that could get interesting. We'll have to see. Again, it really depends on what happens in the next kind of run up to the trade deadline. Because if the Blue Jackets fall out of it, then sure. If they stay where they are right now, I think probably they're less inclined to do that. It depends on how Waddell feels about. At a certain point, there are only so many draft picks that you can have, you know. So we'll see. That's kind of all I've got for today. Back on Monday, we'll talk about the trade deadline a little bit more, and we'll talk a little bit about the Monahan injury, what that means for the team going forward. I talked about it a little bit today, but I want to expand on some of my thoughts there. So that's going to be Monday's episode. Thank you for listening, for making it your first listen of the day, despite the fact that it is 10:30 p.m. Thanks for coming to hang out on the live show. Thanks for the questions. I appreciate all of y'all, and this is fun. This was fun. The Blue Jackets are fun. The vibes are good. Everything is going great. I don't know what around the league scores look like, but Blue Jackets are going to finish the night in a playoff position, which is always great. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. And thanks again for listening. Until Monday, make sure you stay locked on.